November 9th, 2021. I'll call the meeting of the Manitowoc Public School District Board of Education to order. Our first item will be our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'll ask our board secretary to take roll. Here.
Lisa Johnston.
Here.
Dave Nichols.
Here.
Meredith Sauer. Stacy Selner. Here. Carrie Trask.
Here.
And Kathy Willis. Here. Thank you.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our meeting on October 26th.
I'll make that motion.
Can you use a second? Awesome. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. I have no communications to bring forward. Next item is public input. We have again a large number of people that would like to provide public input. I'll allow 3 minutes tonight for public input. I think everybody has their address on here, name and address. I'll call you up and then you'll have your 3 minutes. The first person listed is Natasha Khan of 1241 Meadowbrook Drive.
She stepped out.
All right.
There she is.
Okay, Natasha, you're up first.
Hello, I'm here on behalf of Lakeshore United Visionaries. I am Natasha Khan, a member of LOVE. We'd like to start by saying Public Schools Unite Us and to give a thank you to the board for their time and dedication to the community. We also want to remind everyone that they are volunteers and not paid to sit on the school board. They do not deserve to be attacked.
Natasha, can you pull the mic down a bit? I can't.
Is that better?
Yep, that's good.
Should I?
It's okay.
Okay. We're here to show support for the board and the members who are striving to get things back to the things that matter, teaching the children of this diverse community, and doing so while keeping everyone as safe as possible during this pandemic. Schools, including this district, are not trying to indoctrinate children. Conversations about EDI, critical race theory, equity, equality, and similar topics have been hot-button topics in our community and nationwide. While we fully support these crucial topics and discussion revolving around them, we do recognize that many people still do not fully understand what they are. We encourage people to do research for themselves using unbiased sources. We would love to help point people in the right direction on resources. As an organization, community of people of color, and LGBTQ+ individuals, we ask that you hear us, see us, and communicate with us to continue to build a more educated, understanding, and loving community. Also, it's so wonderful to see so many people showing up in red to support the Manitowoc Public School District. Thank you for the opportunity to have our voices of support.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Robert Van, 1022 Pine Street.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I first want to say thank you all for everything you do. I just wish you would listen to more of the public and the way we want our children's raised. In that, my daughter, when this school year started, puked in her mask. We sent each one of you board members emails about it. Never heard anything from any of you. Mr. Holtzman, you said you never heard of anybody puking in their mask. My daughter did. My other daughter breaks on hives around her mask. This is very disruptive to my children and their health. I think you need to focus on making our kids' education better. Because if you have seen the last few years, your education status has declined when we're over the state average. So please remove the mask for our kids. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chip Yost of Centerville.
Sure how this goes back to you. Good evening. I begin my remarks with public schools unite us, fear and lies divide us. My subject this evening is racial inequity. I chose this topic because it is so easy to get caught up in slogans that don't address the real issues that affect human lives. It is so easy to misinterpret and to be misinterpreted. It happened to me. I did it. Have you ever gone into a store and among the products galore, forgotten for a moment what you came in for? I stood in Walmart's food section. In front of me was a mother and her children. Thoughtlessly, I gazed down at them while I tried to remember. After a moment, the mother shepherded them around me. It was only when the young son chided me with, "We're coming for you," that I realized that I had inadvertently made them a spectacle. And he reacted. If they hear this, I sincerely apologize. As I said, it is so easy to misinterpret and to be misinterpreted. Equity is defined as, quote, the state quality or ideal of being just, impartial, and fair. The concept of equity is synonymous with fairness and justice. To achieve and sustain equity, it needs to be thought of as a structural and systemic concept. There are so many examples of racial inequity that it is dizzying. Right here in Wisconsin, quote, years of housing segregation and redlining have contributed to Wisconsin imprisoning its Black residents at a rate higher than any other state in our country. 1 in every 36 Black people are currently imprisoned in the state, according to a report from the Sentencing Project and reported by NBC News. Homeownership is recognized as a path to wealth accumulation, yet just 41% of Black households own their own home, compared with 73% of whites. The disparity between Black and white households is particularly pronounced. Just 41% of Black households own their own home, compared with more than 73% of white households. There are so many examples of racial inequity that it is dizzying. Just Google racial inequity for a multitude of eye-openers. I'll end where I began. Public schools unite us, fear and lies divide us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up would be Sue Lynn Moore, 5106 Scenic Court.
Hello. I think I've reached a conclusion. You're not teaching CRT in our schools. There's no book on CRT. There isn't a set of textbooks on how to teach CRT. Instead, for the last 5 years, or even maybe more, you have built a skeletal structure for all classes, math, English, art, you name it. That skeletal structure is built of equity, diversity, identity, and white privilege. And it is in our education system every day, indoctrinating our children subtly and sometimes not subtly. So, as taxpayers, parents, and shareholders in the community, we have a big job ahead of us. This won't change with a couple of new school board members, but it will change eventually with all new school board members and some administrative staff, and for sure a new superintendent. Make no mistake, we are in it for the long haul. We will work tirelessly to make these changes, and we will win for our children. An additional comment. I was privy to a chain of emails between a parent and 3 board members. You know who you are. What a trio of arrogant, self-serving people you are. How dare we question your authority? Authority given to you, and also authority that can be taken away from you.
Next up is Jeanette Cassine, 1602 South 15th Street, Manitowoc.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeanette Deshane. Public schools unite us. Fear and lies divide us. Tell me, who is fueling the fear and lies that divide us? Let me start with a quote from one of our board members. This all I fear is politically motivated. Shame on you for politicizing public education for your own partisan and ideologic advantage. Another board member said the following about our recall effort. Honestly, I find this both humorous and infuriating. Disagreeing with my positions does not mean I'm pushing an agenda. Well, let's talk about agendas for a minute. CRT is a doctrine adopted by the left. I realize most of you see the recall as a political movement, but let's point out some cold hard facts. Our school board president is the father of our Democratic mayor. Another board member is the first chair and secretary of the Manitowoc Democratic Party. Ironically, that local Democratic Party asked their supporters to show up tonight united, yelling their battle cry. Look, guys, I'm not up here to push right-wing agendas. I'm not. We need to put parties aside and stand up as Americans for our children. I don't wake up in the morning hoping to piss off a few people, but these are critical conversations that need to be had. CRT is nothing more than a label applied to a cultural phenomenon that has been circulating in our society for decades. America is watching a fine line right now, and without these conversations, we are heading into dangerous territory. This is far more than diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is about tribalism, race, gender, sexual orientation, vaccinated or unvaccinated, masked or unmasked. People can't have these conversations unless you belong to a particular tribe. I spoke with someone last night who overheard a UW-Madison student state, "I hate my identity." This is absolutely heart-wrenching as a parent to hear. We will never get ahead of this by putting another race down for another race to gain. Why are we telling white kids that their heritage sucks? They are to blame for your history. Their skin is ugly. They have white privilege, white supremacy, anti-white, anti-police, anti-government, anti-America. You are the evil in our country. Why are we teaching our kids to hate themselves? To identify themselves by the color of their skin and not the contents of their character? How would you feel if your child came home and made those comments to you? Your elementary school child. We've asked for answers from our school board regarding CRT within our district. They repeatedly deny that it exists. If CRT does not exist, why does this 9-page contract with Group Consulting mention the words white, race, equity, or culture 70 times in 9 pages? Why are we implementing practices to manage white backlash? Why have we paid $42,000 to create further crime? These conversations begin with family, around your dinner table, and not within our schools. I know, as an adult, you're all gonna label me as a racist for having this conversation amongst other adults. Now imagine how your kids feel. I'm begging everyone in this room, regardless of race, to stop with the labels and stop with the stereotypes. Do not let these history books define who you are. Set your own definition by your actions and show your children how to love and respect. That's something that nobody in public school can teach you. We need to heal these psychological calluses that our kids have. If you actually disagree with me, let's debate this. We have multiple platforms, local or virtual, that we can hash this out. I have some associates that would love to have this conversation. One in particular who will absolutely blow your mind. I have one last comment on CRT topic, and I want you to really think about this one. Think about it. Am I too privileged to be treated equally? Let that resonate. Am I too privileged to be treated equally?
Okay, next speaker is Tony Delica, 825 North 13th Street. Tony? You know, yeah, I don't know if I get your last name right, but you know who you are.
Good evening. Since I last addressed you, there have been 0 COVID deaths in any of the Manitowoc school systems that are mask optional. I appreciate that the MPSD will be mask optional effective January 4th. But why wait? Make it effective immediately. If your logic is to wait for everyone to have a chance to get vaccinated, high school age students have had time to do so. Now let's focus on accountability. I am a local business owner. In my business, we measure progress in key areas using dashboards. These dashboards are our scoreboard. If you can't see the score, you have no way of knowing if you're winning or losing, or if a job is being done to the standard of performance. You are just throwing darts at the board and hoping that they stick, a poor strategy. I have sent all of you a trend graph from testing data I have researched from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. This info is available to everyone at recallmpsd.com. You'll also see these floating around. Candidly, your dashboard sucks. For 4 straight years, starting in 2015, the MPSD has been on an academic performance decline, with no sign things are or will be improving. During the same time period, the rest of the state has actually been trending slightly upward. I ask you all, who is responsible for this mediocrity? You'll notice this downward trend coincides with Mark Holtzman's tenure with MPSD. With that background, let us consider the issue of CRT and the DeRoot engagement. Some of you have asked me, why do we make a big deal out of this? Well, a few reasons. It appears a contract was executed on June 29, 2020, which trained 30 administrators and staff and cost taxpayers $42,000. I'm in the process of gathering facts on how exactly this transpired, and perhaps some of you who were active board members at the time can help shed some light on this. Was this even reviewed and discussed by all active board members at the time? And if so, what was the justification for proceeding? Can we get a public record of that vote or discussion? Second, the obvious question. In light of the performance decline mentioned earlier, who decided it would be a good idea to spend $42,000 plus the additional time, energy, and resources to train staff on things like racial equity, white racial discomfort, and how to respond when confronted with white backlash, etc. Honestly, we might have been better off spending off that money on Hooked on Phonics. So then, with the declining academic performance of recent years, many parents and taxpayers in our community are legitimately concerned with the priorities of the superintendent and the overall lack of accountability from the board. Frankly, in my world, where results matter, not many people would still have their jobs if they had the same track record the superintendent has had since 2015. As a concerned parent, taxpayer, and citizen, I ask you all to consider the role and authority you have to impact change. The board needs to hold the superintendent accountable for results that can be measured in terms of academic performance, not some woke racist ideology. I look forward to a robust discussion and debate with the board, parents, and fellow taxpayers on how we can work together to improve the academic and long-term outcomes for our students and community. Thank you for your time.
Let's see, next speaker is Linda Health, 3743 Mappert Street.
Good evening. My name is Linda Health. I am a retired Manitowoc Public School District teacher. Public schools do unite us all. I am a believer in the importance of the public school for the children in a community and for the community in general, and I am still very invested in this school district. But from the conversations that I hear about the school board, it appears that some people believe that the school board hasn't made decisions or initiated any actions that would ensure the best education possible for all students in the Manitowoc schools. But in reality, before even last April, board goals were set about these matters in education: improvement in student achievement, improvement in student behavior, retention of quality and experienced staff members, and attracting back to Manitowoc students who have left to go elsewhere. It's really time to get behind these goals. These are the things that really matter to learning. So let's get busy, let's get to work, and let's do this together. Thank you.
Next is Marilyn Wire, 6300 Heartclub Lake Road.
These are questions each one of you should answer to these parents tonight. Do parents have a right to be involved with what is being taught to their children? Do parents have a right to know what you are teaching? Can a parent enter a child's classroom following your COVID masking protocol, quietly sit in the back of the classroom and observe the lesson being taught? Can a parent, following your COVID masking protocol, look at the books available to their child in the school libraries and classrooms? These are simple yes and no questions, and parents have a right to know what their elected with each elected school board member stands for. Do parents have rights or don't they? How hard is it to answer these simple questions? And if you don't, why not? We can assume there is something you don't want us to see. The superintendent and the school board president should develop a forum for each of you to answer these questions to the public. If you decline to answer these questions, parents will know you do not represent them. I don't think there's a parent out here that doesn't care what their child is being taught.
Next speaker is Nikki Willowbridge, 2514 South 8th Street.
It's kind of hard to hear you back there. Did you say we got 30 minutes to present or 3? I'll talk about critical race theory. It stems from an earlier set of thinking called critical theory, credited mostly to the German philosopher. He believed critical theorists should work in academia not to find objective truth, but to forward their political goals. Therefore, they should purposely slant their research and findings to fit their politics. Critical race theory reformulates the old Marxist dichotomy of oppressor and oppressed, replacing the class categories of bourgeoisie and proletariat with the identity categories of white and black. So Marxism is just another name for communism. Communism, Nikita Khrushchev said that we will bury you, that we will turn this country into a communist country. CRT is one of the avenues to do that. Something called the 1619 Project in K-12 schools insists students must learn accurate history, especially when it comes to racism and slavery. Nicole Hannah Jones's 1619 Project was published by the New York Times. It's at the center of this debate. The irony is that the 1619 Project, as acknowledged by Hannah Jones herself, is not history so much as it is social justice activism. This means that objectivity has been replaced with the kind of subjective truth that aims to bring awareness to past injustice, whether or not this injustice is factual, metaphorical, or arrived at through revisionism. So that means the events portrayed in the 1619 Project are not accurate from a traditional historical perspective, but from a projective one. Now, I'm not a professional historian, but I personally resent her misuse of history in her attempts to advance a political agenda. The purpose of CRT is not to improve America, but to destroy it.
Next speaker, Phil Hoff, 2525 Kellner Street.
Thank you very much. I was going to speak to you today on behalf of parents who have daughters like myself regarding the masking issue. I know there's a lot of other parents out there, perhaps who may be in the same position and don't want to be involved in conflict. I don't have any problem with that. I'm a lawyer. But in any case, my daughter, when she was born, had meconium aspiration, which means she essentially ate her feces in the womb. She spent her first 10 days of her life in the hospital. Didn't know whether she would pull out of that, and she did. And for the first 2 or so years of her life was on a nebulizer. When the COVID situation first came along, it was a situation where talking with her physician, her pediatrician, they said she may be at risk. We don't know. I mean, her lung may be fine now, and then again, they may not be. And the fact that you have decided to protect your students through a masking policy, I find very commendable. Right now, we are sending our daughter to the Ron Pauli school, which is not the public school here. And last year, they did an excellent job of following protocols, distancing, masking, and there were very little issues at the school. This year, they decided to go another way, having a mask optional stance. And I heard another gentleman indicate that there were 0 COVID tests for mask optional schools. I'm not sure where he got his data, but I can guarantee you that that's false. As last week, there was a fairly large outbreak in the middle school of the Ron Pauli schools. And in fact, they had to go to distance learning because of that outbreak. So once again, I'm not sure where that information came from, but it is false. The fact that they were able to go through the whole last year in person was great for her, and I get to think great for the other students. And hopefully that's what is going to continue on with the schools here. Luckily, we have a vaccine now for the younger ones, and hopefully, and obviously that can be reviewed at that point. As far as the CRT issue, and frankly, I don't know too much about it, so I'm not going to speak too much about it, but the one thing I will add is that again, in my perspective, I send my daughter to a school, a Christian school, a Catholic school, and I'm not Catholic. And so I'm sure that she's going to be taught things that I don't believe, that I don't agree with. And the best thing we can do as parents is not to try to change the curriculum they're on, but to give our children critical thinking skills. So that when they're taught something that we don't believe with, they can come to us, we can discuss with them what we think that they should believe, and that is the best way that they're going to grow up to be critical thinkers themselves and be able to succeed in this world. And hopefully all parents will be able to do that. Finally, the last thing I wanted to add was I see some of the school board members here have chosen not to follow the rules that are implemented by the school board. And I find that to be, frankly, not very acceptable. In my profession, I have the courthouse requires masking for all individuals, and I'm a criminal defense attorney, which means that I represent people who essentially have a hard time following the rules. And those people seem to be able to follow the rules of masking in the courthouse at all times. The fact that the elected representative can't do that is frankly pretty sad. Thank you.
All right, next up is Matthew Spalding, 3223 Goss Lake Road.
Good evening. I'd just like to clarify, that gentleman that was up here earlier said tests, not deaths. So anyway, I'm originally from Wisconsin, but for the majority of my adult career, I was in Arizona as a law enforcement officer. And I retired early specifically to bring my daughter up here back home so she could get the good education that I got when I went through school. And I'm disappointed. When a person chooses to send their child to public school, it is the ultimate contract, if you will, of trust between the parents and the teachers, school board officials. A lot of us cannot afford to send our children to Rock College or any other parochial school. And a lot of us work 2 jobs and whatever we need to do. You can't afford to stay home and teach them homeschool either. But don't get it twisted. I am the ultimate authority when it comes to my daughter when you teach her. Yeah. Along with every other parent. You don't get that choice. Just like Sue Lynn said before, if we have to vote you out, we will. When it comes to these masks, obviously, we have been telling everybody for a long time that they don't work. You've got a 90% decline in cases in Florida where there is no mandates. I'm not an anti-mask person, and I'm not an anti-vax person. I'm an anti-mandate person, period. Well, on top of the fact that they don't work, one of the other things that we probably learned throughout life, you let him speak a lot longer anyway, is that the one thing that's more contagious than COVID, besides a yawn, is a smile. These kids can't see each other smile, they can't interact with each other, they're kept distances away from each other, sitting at separate tables. You're taking away our children's childhood. You're taking away their identities. We need to get rid of these mask mandates. Don't you even dare to think about talking to my child about a vaccine. That's my decision. And just to let everybody know, my name is Matthew Spalding and I'm running for the school board. I'm accountable for these actions, and anybody else
As you can see, there's a lot of support here, a lot of people in red. And I think we all want the same thing, excellence in education. That's what everybody wants. Let's face it, currently the numbers are bad. I've been told that, I've heard at your meeting that one of the reasons why is because we have so many English limited people in Manitowoc. I've heard that it's socioeconomic issues. That's what the problem is. I've heard that students with disabilities, to bring the numbers down. Well, when you take a look at the numbers, and this is all about data, it really is, okay? And the data is coming from the state. The other schools in the area, Sheboygan, Fond du Lac, Appleton, and if you're looking at schools that are really the same size as Manitowoc, Menasha is really the kind of the gold standard there. The bottom line is they've got bigger challenges. They've got more English limited students. They've got more issues with socioeconomic situations. You can have opinions as to what's going on here, but the data doesn't lie. I heard that one of the problems is we've got to close the learning gap. Look at the data. The data says that the learning gap has been the same since 2015 as it is now. That's not really where the issue is. We've got the grading scores, and I think what you've got to look at is you've got to look at achievement and you've got to look at growth. And those are the areas that you've got to concentrate on. So what can you do to control this? What are you going to be able to do? Okay? You're hiring teachers from the same pool. You're paying teachers at basically the same level or better than anybody else in the county. Okay? The one thing you can do is you can control the learning environment. That is in your hands. What you need is you got to get rid of it. There's chaos in the classroom. You got to group that out. Now I do understand that the one objective that was given to the superintendent by the school board was to concentrate on discipline, concentrate on learning environment, concentrating on making sure that the students that are ready to learn, that they can learn. My one request is that you take a look closely at how you construct that should be an objective, not a goal, an objective, and make sure that it is data-driven and quantitative so that you can see what the success is. Thank you.
All right, next up is Mike Sheridan, 437 South 41st Street.
I come before the board to thank you for your service to our community. I'm a registered nurse, and a lot of people have indicated that they're very tired over the COVID. Trust me, we're tired too. And we thank you for all the things that you've done to keep the students and the children of our community safe. There's been a lot of things said up here tonight, and I've listened to some of them and just wonder where they come from. The masks are ineffective. Well, if masks are so ineffective, then why did the Wisconsin Medical Journal conducted a meta-study? And a meta-study is taking all the studies that there are and boiling them down into consensus opinion. Consensus opinion is what the medical community believes is the best evidence. And the best evidence showed that as trusted leaders of our communities, physicians and other healthcare providers should communicate clearly about what the literature tells us regarding the utility of masks in mitigating the community spread of COVID-19. This school board has been correct in taking student and teacher safety importantly and seriously. I've heard a lot about critical race theory too, and I really have to think that a lot of the people who speak of it don't know of what they speak, but it really doesn't matter because critical race theory is not being taught in the schools. Diversity may be. And if you're going to teach diversity, I'm all for it, because the only way you're ever going to change the mistakes of the past is by learning from them. And you can't learn from them if you keep them hidden. I'm really getting tired of some people in the community using children as pawns in their own misguided attempts, or that is not what the school board is for. That's not what we need the schools to be for. They're putting around a petition to recall some members, and according to their petition, they're not real clear on why. It's just non-representation is what they say. Well, according to the latest Marquette poll, 69% of Wisconsinites support requiring teachers and students to wear masks in public schools. This is representation. CRT is not being taught, it's a non-issue, and it's just being used to whip parents up into a frenzy. False information about COVID and how best to treat and prevent it is dangerous. As we saw last Sunday, it makes losers of us all. Dr. Rogan is also wrong, just like Dr. Google and Dr. Facebook.
Hey, we got a couple more, is it Mansfield? Did I get that right?
Thank you, board members. Listen, I feel we have a real problem here. I feel that so much energy is spent being told what is wrong with the schools. If half of that energy would be put toward what do the students need, what do the teachers need, how can we provide it as a community? How can we help the board be more effective? What about the damn kids? I don't understand where the community is so busy trying to shout over each other's heads and not taking the best step forward for the kids. So I challenge you, the board, to talk to the teachers who are stretched to the max with after COVID. They have kids who have had the worst time learning last year, and they have kids who actually excel learning at home by themselves. So they have a huge disparity in the classroom. How do you even teach to that when you have kids at 20 different levels? What can we do for them? What can we do instead of marching around selling hot dogs? Can we do to help our kids succeed? It's got to be about the kids. It's got to stop being about yelling. And I challenge every person in this room to step up, do right, and help the community and not just your individual household. We have to proceed as a whole. We are a team, and for our community to do well, we have to work together. That's it. Do better.
right, yeah, Tim, you're ready, you're the last one, Tim Kaczynski, 3611 Deer Run Court.
When my brother was a child, he would throw extravagant tantrums, not so much crying as howling and bellowing, screaming nonstop until he was red in the face and sweating, in hopes of wearing my mother down to get his way. Fortunately, she did not give in, and he eventually would collapse, unable to continue. I feel as if I'm watching the adult equivalent of that play out now. People acting up not to bring about positive change, but to feed their narcissism and draw attention to their agenda, hoping to wear down the board to get their way. The children sadly seem like nothing more than pawns, a means to an end. And worse yet, they're learning that tantrums and bullying are an appropriate tactic to get what they want. I would implore with the board to rise above the noise and distraction, both within and outside the board, and truly address the needs of the children of the district, acting in their best interest for their education. Don't allow narcissism, personal agendas, and selfish bullying to wear you down. Set an appropriate example of what it means to act like a real adult. Don't allow yourselves to be worn down. Create educational opportunities. Don't cave into the distraction of personal politics. And one final note, if history doesn't make you uncomfortable and question things, then you're not really learning history. You're just repeating a story that makes you feel good about yourself, nothing more. Thank you.
We'll move on to our committee reports. First committee will be our personnel committee. Terry?
Yeah, okay.
You're up.
We had a meeting on November 3rd.
Okay, well, maybe I missed you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh,
It's probably in there somewhere. I just missed it.
No problem.
There was a couple of no-shows, so I kind of went through those.
So I've heard a lot of people speak tonight, and there's some stuff I agree with and some stuff I don't. One thing that resonates with me is the importance of protecting our children. I think that's what most of us are trying to do. I had one friend that I had an opportunity to listen to him, and he said, "Hey, Ryan, I'm trying to put my son to bed, and he won't go to sleep unless he's wearing his mask." So his son will not go to sleep unless he's able to wear a mask to sleep. Now, that bothered me tremendously. So I began to get more involved in the private school system, now the public school system. But the father would actually go in to his son's room before he goes to bed to take the mask off his son's face. So I guess I'm here to say is that there's consequences to every action and inaction. And if we're going to force people to get masked or force them to do things against their will, there's consequences to that. And I think we're beginning to see them. Drug overdoses, depression, suicide. And just as we may be responsible if COVID-19 spreads to somebody else, you might be responsible if masking kids and putting them in a constant state of fear leads to depression, suicide, and drug overdose. So I'd like us all to think about that. So thank you very much.
We'll move on to you, Terry.
okay. The personnel committee had a meeting on November 3rd. We had three topics to look into. The first was the
double licensing of the middle school teachers, and we had Lance Masters, the principal of the Washington Middle School, and he filled us in on some things, and given an opportunity to ask questions about the proposal, about the program, and get a chance to answer those. And by the end of it, we really came down to just sort of one reservation. And the reservation was, as Lance pointed out, that when he's hiring a teacher, he's telling them that the expectation is to, if they are only licensing one topic, one subject, that there may be an expectation that they may be trained in the second one within the core curriculum. And Stacy asked if that's reflected in the contract. And both Lance and Joyce said that it was not. But some kind of memorandum of understanding ought to be included when people are hired. Otherwise, we pretty much went with the program. The second topic was the issue of should we get an outside vendor to process and compile the results of the exit interviews. There was a good deal of discussion about that, and we agreed to kind of pause and not move forward, seek an outside vendor, and didn't think that the current methods of doing exit interviews and compiling them in-house was a system that wasn't necessarily broken. So unless the board really wants to take this on more, it's it's up to the board to say that, because I think on both topics we're pretty much recommending that go with what you do. Am I right about that, Stacy? Meredith is.
If you want me to say something now, or we
Sure, go ahead.
discussion?
Go ahead, as long as Carrie's
Okay.
asking.
The one thing that I don't think is reflected in the minutes here, but I think is important, is that there was a strong objection to the single license, and let everybody know that we've already had our first seasoned teacher of 20 plus years that has resigned mid-year, which we passed apparently last meeting. And now we're without a math teacher because they didn't want to do that. So that was my objection to doing this dual license. I wanted there to be a safety net for these teachers, and we don't have one.
Well, I'd like to add on that one that that was not the straw that broke the back. I mean, the woman took a job, one that she preferred to take. We didn't make any issue about her resigning mid-contract. And she did mention in a message that she herself personally objected to that, and there's to the double licensing. And nothing in the policy says that people can't object to it. That they can't seek other options. So I'm not sure that that's quite a fair reading of her motivation, but not a complete reading.
Actually, Carrie, it really is one of the motivations. It's
I
definitely
don't
part of
think
it.
I asked.
You didn't ask her if it was a motivation.
I don't think we're having a discussion about that.
Right, Carrie's getting his report, and he.
Okay, but he just
I'll
responded
Stacy to
saying
ask.
it wasn't part of the reasons.
I did.
I'm counteracting that.
I
and
did.
saying it
Well, I
absolutely
didn't ask
was.
you.
Let Carrie finish his
And
report.
I asked Stacy.
Yeah, let
if
Carrie
she had
finish his
anything
report.
further.
He's got the floor right now.
The last issue we took up, it wasn't really an issue, it was just a clarification process, deals with the evaluation of the superintendent. Let me just kind of refresh your memories on that. That we have a responsibility as a board to do a formative evaluation of the superintendent's efforts and progress pertaining to job performance, the yearly, progress on the set goals, and any strategic plans the board may have adopted shall be conducted no later than the end of the second week of December. Okay? And this will involve, 1, review of any available midterm information data and artifacts provided by the superintendent. 2, the compilation of the results of the survey questionnaire devised and adopted by the board and completed by each individual board member. 3, a closed meeting of the board in which all board members will have an opportunity to present their own observations, discuss the material provided by the superintendent and the survey questionnaire, and engage in summarizing results, conclusions, and recommendations. 4, the board president, one other designated member of the board, shall meet with the superintendent no later than the end of the second week of January to share the consensus of the formative evaluation and listen to the superintendent's comments and reactions. Now, in doing that, the schedule is that right after this meeting, by no later than November the 15th, the survey evaluation form will be sent out to each individual member of the board. Those responses must be returned by December 1st. The Personnel Committee will meet. When do we meet? We meet on December 8th, December 8th, to compile and summarize the results of the questionnaire. To accept and review information submitted by the superintendent. And then on December 15th, at the regular board meeting in closed session, the board will look at the material presented, have the discussion, come up with a summary and a set of recommendations. And then in January, the president of the board and one other board member designated to be there will present those to the superintendent. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, I'm done my report.
Okay, then I'll ask if there's any questions for the personnel chair. Well, Kathy, you had it, want to make
Yeah,
sure, now it's your turn.
I just want to respond about our teacher who resigned. I mean, certainly she had a better opportunity and had been looking for a while, but part of that was because she was aware of the dual licensure and that she was told that she was going to be having to do that in the future. So it certainly played a role in that. Carrie, she's not the only one. We've had many teachers who have quit and sought out other positions because of that in the past. I can name in my head several, which I won't divulge their names right now. And I can think of 7 more who are sitting on the table. So it's not a small issue. I heard you say in the meeting, because I watched it, it's only 6. Well, it's not only 6, or it's only 12. It's not only 12. These are people, if you accumulate the years of service that they have had in this district, it's a heck of a lot more than about 30 other people combined. You know what I mean? So I think we owe them some serious thought behind what we're going to do with this. And I did hear you mention the possibility of a grandfather clause, something. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying maybe that's what we should be doing, but it seems like we ought to be giving them like the respect that they're due for having been here a long
I don't
time.
think this is disrespectful.
Well, and I also have an issue with the fact that, when we have teachers, I'll use our teacher who left, our math teacher, 20+ years, she knows her stuff, right? You can't deny that she knows how to teach math. She knows how to reach kids, or she would have had other issues brought up before this. And that's never happened. So why would we not continue having our teachers with specialties teach them, even if it's a small number? I've heard the 2-house thing. If you want to hire new people into for our 2-house program, well, let the newcomers start taking that on if they're not opposed to that. But why can't we have 1 or 2 houses within our middle school that utilize our teachers who have been here a long time and have some 4-person houses? I kind of think that might be a good transition. I'd like for that to be explored.
Okay, Colin, go ahead.
I too echo what Kathy's sentiments are there. I think that we, upon hiring individuals to do a task, we enter into a contract with them to, here, you're going to do this, we pay you for this, and we have an agreement. To add a job scope change, I don't feel is fair to those individuals at all. And I think that I don't see where it should be brought into their job scope, especially when there is some significant pushback amongst some of the teachers. We do need to hear what some of those teachers feel and think. And so I would like to see a grandfather clause put into play for that. So I'd be willing to make a motion to that we do grandfather that if at all possible.
I don't think we can do that at this point.
Well, hang on. Just hang on, Colin. Okay?
I just want to make the board aware that when we hire teachers, we hire them to what they're qualified and certified, and that's what it says absolutely in their contract. It's not our goal to move people to different roles and responsibilities, but that happens all the time. We have elementary teachers that teach 3rd grade 1 year and 5th grade the next year. And we do that because the system changes, because the grades and the students change. It is absolutely essential for this district to have contracts that says where you're certified and qualified. We can't pigeonhole ourselves into specific areas like that, or we will be forced to involuntary transfer people. But that's something that we just have to keep in mind.
Dave, could I speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
So one of the individuals that we all received an email about was being requested to move into, she even said in the email that she had no background in, she had a background in science, but the math background wasn't there. And she was being requested. Was it the other way around?
Yes, it's
okay.
just the math. Yeah.
But I think you can all see my point in that if she doesn't have the background, does she have the ability? And yeah, she probably has the ability, just like, I went to college, taught math, and in higher level math at college, but could I go and teach it? No, absolutely not. So should I? No, absolutely not. So why would we be requiring people to do that?
And I understand the flexibility that we have to have, but you're talking about certified and qualified teachers, like hiring them in what they're certified and qualified for. 20+ years ago, that was not as, the certification and qualifications were different than they are now. Also, we're talking about why can't we make that adjustment, as I just suggested before, that maybe we have some 4-house teams that bring those people together and don't want to make that extra certification. For the last year and a half, we've discussed about our teachers being super overtaxed, overwhelmed, overworked, and we're talking about taking some of our most qualified, experienced teachers and adding to their stress level by requiring them to put yet another degree behind them or taking more tests. I just don't see that it would, in the end, be what's best for our kids. Because while those teachers are trying to do that too, something's got to give. And the classroom is going to hurt from that. Again, I think we should have some 4-person houses while we're adjusting, while we're hiring new people. We certainly could do that for a couple of years. I know I'm just talking about me, but I don't see the issue with doing that. To suddenly say we have to have all 2-person houses, why can't we have 1 or 2 before?
I think this is a plan rather than a hard and fast, locked in, this is goddamn the way this is the way it's gonna go. I mean, I think there's certainly room for individual choices on the part of the teachers. I mean, some of them say, well, no, I don't want to do that. There's an opening at Lincoln and, they take the job, or I don't want to do that. So they go to Denmark and take a job. I mean, people are all grown up here, and this is a world in which, stuff changes. And nobody in the Manitowoc public school system has got tenure. So it seems to me that in making those decisions, principals who know their staff pretty well, seems to be people in the head office. I mean, I don't see any indication of anybody being like Captain Bly in this case. I mean, it's always possible, I suppose, but it doesn't seem to me that this is a set of goals and recommendations rather than, look, this is the law of the land, because we haven't passed this as a policy. So I think that, for me, it's like, well, who gets to decide? I mean, it's a little like, well, yeah, we're going to hire you as a teacher. What do you want to do? I mean, there has to be some kind of a coordination between what is needed and what people do. So I don't think we can do this based on sentiment. I think we need to base this on, of course, respect for the people we're dealing with, and of course for the need for the program.
I don't see it as just sentiment, Carrie. I see it as what's best for our kids. A teacher who's taught math, for example, for 20 plus years, certainly knows what she's doing, is more than qualified to continue teaching math to those kids.
Yeah.
Is she qualified to go out and teach science then? Well, yeah, if you took a couple courses, you can teach it, but does that mean she's the most qualified to do that?
I would bet.
Also,
I would bet there are a lot of people in the middle schools that are certified in both.
Yes,
do both
I agree.
very well.
Well, that's
so I think it's an individual basis.
right. So I think we need to be.
I've said my piece.
Okay.
Well, and you have to remember, K through 8 is different from K through 12. A lot of those same teachers may not be qualified to teach at high school level. I think that this is just worth looking at to see what should be done, and is there ways that we can be flexible with that as we're moving maybe toward that model of the 2-person house.
Before we take this discussion any further, where is this plan at? That's what I would like to know.
Where's the plan?
We want to have a motion. Where is the plan? We have people talking as if this is already taking place. Where are we with it? Carrie seems to indicate that this is an evolving plan. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I saw it, maybe a month ago. That was the first I saw it.
Okay.
And it was pretty clear that there'd been some discussions.
Right, but are we in a position where
between principals and teachers?
What the plan is that we are providing financial options for people who are dual certified and giving them that option, knowing all along that that is an interest of the district. I don't believe in any case that we are saying you must. However, if you don't, and there is a decline in enrollment, that may mean that you are being forced to move to a different location. That's the conversation where it's genesis.
And what if there's not a job open in a different location? Will they lose their job?
Not necessarily. That's where they may end up displacing another individual at a different building, which is what we're trying to avoid, right? They're going to be involuntary transferred to another building and then involuntary transfer somebody else. So again, as we look at our overall enrollment model, that's why this was proposed, because we don't have 8 team members anymore. We have odd numbers. And in order to do that, we have to have licensures that support that. So we are, and again, I would ask that Joyce isn't here, so I don't want to speak specifically, but I don't recall in any of the documentations that this was a requirement. This was an opportunity to support dual licensed teachers to get paid and compensated for their time. That's why we were asking for support.
And it's not an actionable item. It's another one of these situations where the district gets to decide and there is no board vote.
We can vote on it.
Well,
It's not
the
an
board
actionable
can, we have a report with that issue there. There could be a motion to it, but my point in asking where is it at, it doesn't seem to me that there's been a plan presented to us. But rather, just that it's evolving into a plan. In that regard, teachers have always been at risk of being moved to a different location. Teachers don't decide where they teach, the administration does.
I don't think anyone was objecting to moving. It's not, and.
Well, I'm sure there are teachers who object to moving.
We can have these
certainly.
teachers.
Teachers have been moved to different locations and they've
to the
objected.
board, if you'd like to hear from the teachers themselves and what they were told.
I've been told by multiple parties, not just our person who left, that this is a plan that's going to try to be in place for 22-23 school year. That's next year. So it may be that people have not presented that to us, but it's certainly something that's being looked at, thought about, and moving ahead. And so I think we need to say, as a board, we want to see that plan and what it all involves so we can make decisions or help make that decision.
Well, I don't think obviously there's any secret about it because the personnel committee has dealt with it twice now. There was discussion of it even last meeting, et cetera. But what's the pleasure of the board? You want us to look at it again with recommendations and present it to the board as an action item? Or, what?
I think the decline enrollment definitely needs to be looked at, but what kind of options do we have moving forward with our teachers? Again, can some of those four-person houses coexist with two-person houses? Or what is the reason? I mean, besides people and the number of kids attending, what is the reason behind it? And I'm looking at education too, and the teachers and the power that they have as a teacher and the ability that they have, the passion that they have for teaching certain subjects. Some people go to school and they know they may be teaching multiple subjects, but we have a group of people who have been teaching certain areas for a long time. Maybe some of them won't mind switching, I don't know. But I just think we need to look at this further as a group and not just let it fall by the wayside and just agree. We've been hearing things. You just heard it a month ago. I've known about this for a year. The first time it came up was last year, spring, when Washington brought it up that this may be happening. So.
Terry, just put it on your agenda for your next meeting.
Okay.
I mean, it's your committee.
We're certainly on familiar ground.
Yeah.
We'll take it up. But do you want us to bring it back as a proposal to be discussed and voted on?
I would ask your committee to make that decision.
Okay.
I'm not gonna make that for you.
Okay.
Anything else? Otherwise, Colin, go ahead with the personnel.
Yeah, so I did have one other item that I wanted to discuss, and that was the exit interviews. It was mentioned in the personnel committee minutes that from what I gathered, and maybe I am wrong here, it sounded like you guys on the committee felt that it was we would continue status quo as to what we are currently doing for exit interviews. So I want to state that I don't feel that that's the best. I think I really do see a good opportunity to give honest answers so that we can be self-reflective,
Who?
and do you disagree?
I don't know what you mean by honest answers. Are you implying that the answers we get now are not honest?
Yeah, that's actually what I am.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Okay. So that would be why, I mean, and I don't mean that there's dishonesty.
Oh,
I
I guess I don't know as far as-
Okay, so how about you just let me finish what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
Alan, you did use the word dishonest.
Okay, so the dishonesty in what it is that is going on at the school. I'm not accusing any administration, is what I'm getting the feel that Mr. Trask here is implying. What I'm stating is that people aren't always going to be forthcoming in their exit, okay? If there's an issue and they worry about it affecting their friends or even their career down the road, then I think that having a third party that we can go to and say, give us what we're looking for. I don't see an issue there. I'm wondering why going to a third party to do an exit interview is such a big problem, because I know in corporate world that occurs all the time where people do get third party exit interviews. So if we're going to treat this like a high level business, then let's do some of the things that high level businesses do.
I also agree with Colin again. First of all, I think the word might be full disclosure rather than dishonesty. I think there are things that might be said that might not otherwise, if they know it's staying in-house. It's something that I've been kind of fighting for myself since I came on the board. And I think that we may have even a greater number of people giving their interviews. I think it may be full disclosure. And even if we're getting full disclosure now, there would be like no questioning that then, right? If we're out of the house, because again, like as Colin pointed out, there may be friends, there may be children, there may be family members who work within the district. And even though we may say nothing would ever happen, that doesn't mean that the people leaving may necessarily trust that. So a third party, the cost is so minuscule for that. I know we talked about maybe $2,500 was brought up maximum, right around there. You know, even within our meeting today, is talk about like for a thank you, we're giving MPSC teachers logo blankets. How much did those cost? I can bet you those cost us more than $2,500. So, you know, I just think it would be a really, I'm just thinking cost wise. I'm not saying we shouldn't do nice things for our teachers, absolutely, but the cost wise is just so minimal. It's just such a small amount compared to what our budget is. I don't think that would be a factor. And I do think that we would get a lot of information from that. And it sounds too like they would also put together some information for us that we don't currently do, like the hot topics when they talked about the comments, like what are the common problems, or maybe they're good things, right? But the common threads throughout them. So I see there being a lot of good in having that third party.
Well, you know, Stacy wanted to.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to answer Colin's question, we left it sort of the second to last line of the minutes. We left it as we weren't fully convinced that our system was broken. We knew that we needed to revamp it, and so what we had suggested at the end of the meeting is that we wanted to review the whole process. And what we were doing, could we tweak our process to make it better? And if we couldn't, then we would look to doing the third party. So it certainly wasn't, or I didn't feel like it was off the table. It was that we wanted to collect a little bit more data on what we were doing, and would we get more participation if we did it through the third party. So there were just kind of some open-ended questions. So I just wanted to offer that.
Clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, it does say at a subsequent meeting they were gonna continue it, so that's not ended, so, okay, anything else?
Yeah, what is the percentage of exiting teachers actually filling out a survey right now?
Pretty honest.
I don't know. It was in that report.
I think they say 60% here.
Okay.
Okay.
So more than half of exiting staff or teachers are filling out the survey.
It says, in the minutes, it says 60%.
Okay.
So I think.
That's a high number.
Okay, well, we'll, there you go, Terry, you got a full agenda. for your Meetings. And by the way, at the county level, we do it in-house. Always have. Nobody's ever brought it up as an issue, so. Anyhow, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes from that meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I want to apologize for interrupting.
So you have the floor when you're giving your report, so it's.
I
up to
know,
you to-
but I interrupted. I think that's rude, so I'll try to do that.
All right, curriculum committee, Meredith's not here. Who do we have? Who's on the curriculum that could give a report? Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, so curriculum met on November 4th, and one of the things that came back from the general meeting was a discussion on the IB program. We did discuss that again, and we did a motion in a second to dissolve that program. The reason for that is because we looked at the numbers, and there are more students that are engaging in AP classes, Rising Phoenix, and all the other programs that we have. So we see that the enrollment for the IB is going down. Those kids will be serviced. The ones that are still in the program, they'll be able to complete that. And it'll come up later in our meeting to do a full board vote on that as well. We also got a K-12 math update regarding our longitudinal middle level and high school math data that was presented. And one of the things that's not reflected in the minutes was, it sort of is toward the end, but there was discussion about, and I know everyone's seen these emails about a group of students that the criteria that was used to place them in enriched math, they felt like it was unfair, being left out, whatever. So what we decided as a group was that we really needed to figure out a way that we were going to capture kind of all the levels of math. So there's a very, very high level, there's kind of a middle of the road level, and the general level. And so we'd like to come back and look at what are some ways that we can provide enrichment to all students if they don't qualify for the a compacted math or an accelerated math program, so math enrichment. That was all that we talked about at our meeting. I will answer any questions that anyone might have.
Anybody have any questions for curriculum? None. All right. I would entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes from that meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Awesome. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's our committee report. So then we'll move on to the report of the superintendent. Angela, you're way over there, yeah. Payment of vouchers.
Okay, yes, the payment of vouchers for the month of October was included in board book. In the summary included at the top of the page, we have a total of $5,602,577.82 for our accounts payable, and then $2,129,551.67 for a grand total of $7,716,426.86 for approval this month. So I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
I would just add, because we've had a few questions or comments from the public, every payment is every month we get payment of vouchers,
Right.
all the checks are in there.
Yes.
We all have the opportunity to ask questions. I've been here long enough to know that there have been numerous times where we've questioned payments. So it's not as if we just take it and we just go with it.
Correct.
So anybody that is, telling us that, just, it's not true. We have to approve every payment.
I would say too, compared to other districts, we offer extensive detail on our payment or our payments that we do through the board approval. Some districts just have a line item that this is how much we wrote in checks, and it's independently approved by like a single board member. So I feel like you do a very good job.
Alan, did you have a question for Angela?
I do actually. So the first page of that was voided checks. A lot of significantly smaller numbers here. But there was one that was for almost 13,000 to Brant buses. I was curious as to why that was voided.
I can look into that and get you an answer on that. I'm not sure exactly right now why that was. It might have been like a double payment or an overpayment or something. So yeah, our total contract with them is hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yes, it is a large amount. I'll get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
And with the voided checks, this is a quick reminder, it's not like you can just rip up the check and throw it out in our financial system. We have to officially process it. That's why they appear on it.
Okay, otherwise I'd entertain a motion in a second to approve the payment of vouchers.
I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and you're still on, Angela, because you have the monthly financial report.
This is the first month that we put this together for this fiscal year with the budget approved. At this point in the year, we're very early in the year. If you look on the third page where we sort of have to grasp a lot of the revenues that we've had come in so far, just mainly the state revenues. This is kind of a low cash time of the year. So it's like today was like, okay, when do we get our next aid payment? So that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. And then we get property tax starts to come in January. Those are all big things. In the grand scope of like our fund balance is always changing. We just approved $7 million. It's already paid out. Our balances today are like in the 8 million range. So this is a very low cash time, and then we get more cash that fluctuates greatly throughout the year. So yeah, things are progressing very typical compared to the previous fiscal year.
Okay, anything else? Then I'll move on to the personnel report. Joyce is not here.
I'm gonna
take that, Mark?
Yep, I'm gonna pinch it here for Joyce. We have a personnel report attached and then an addendum. So we typically take those separately, so as to take any questions.
Well, typically we take them together, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
I like them taken separately.
Okay.
I would just add though, with this addendum, it does include the math teacher that is replacing the one that left. So by not approving that, we're suggesting that we aren't hiring that math teacher right now, so. But that's up to you. You want to take them separately? I mean, if you want to.
They were submitted yesterday.
You're okay together?
With me.
Anybody
Yep.
else take them together? Okay. All right.
Is the new math teacher qualified to do one?
I guess you'll have to look at her resume.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that with our HR directors in here.
Maybe the superintendent.
You have any idea?
I do not know this individual's certification, but I can look it up and get back to you.
Good. All right, then we'll take the personnel report along with the addendum. I'd entertain a motion in a second to approve.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we'll move on. We can't question the HR director, she's not here, so. Then we'll move on to the superintendent. And it's the report cards.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jason and Pam to share with the board kind of a general overview. The state report cards are not out yet, but before they do come, we anticipate them coming in the next couple of weeks. That we want to give kind of the board an overview of what that looks like, and then that'll give us an opportunity as we do have the report cards and share those likely at our next meeting to have just a precursor, better overview. So I will turn it over to our learning department and Jason.
All right, thank you. As Mr. Holzman indicated, you should have a report cards at a glance, in board book, and a hard copy. So we're going to use this as our conversations centerpiece tonight. This is not our report card. This is a learning tool
to help us better understand how numbers are calculated by the state when we do get our report card. We're expecting our school and district report cards to be available in the coming weeks. And if that is the case, that Pam and I will be doing a full board report on November 23rd around our district report card and making sure everyone can access individual school report cards. And then our plan would be for November 14th to share some longitudinal data stemming from our report cards and some building action plan goals to highlight the things that our buildings are working on. I'm sorry, December, what is it? Oh, December 14th, I apologize. So this is a 3-part mini series that tonight will be education. The next time we meet will be data, our report card, and then the final will be some longitudinal data and building goals. The at a glance really has 6 parts. We're going to go follow the numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just walk the group through what you can expect to see in our district report card front cover page. Much more to follow, but this would be the front cover. So number 1 shows a couple things. One is just some general overview of our school district. We'll see the grade levels that we have the opportunity to teach. We will see our enrollment, and we'll see the percent of open enrollment students. Also in part 1 here, we'll see a breakdown by percent of subgroups of students. And those circles there by number 1 on the right there, we'll see percentages of students that are serviced through our special ed department that have those individual education plans. We'll also see a percent of students that are economically disadvantaged. And then we'll see the percent of students that are receiving services through English learners, English language learners. So that is section number 1. Again, kind of an overview of our district by numbers of students and populations.
And those numbers, the percentages represent the students that are factored into our data. So students that were with the district for the full academic year. So this might vary a little bit if you went to look at our current demographics, because our enrollment demographics include students who may not have been with us for the entire school year. So just wanted to clarify that. The second piece there, number 2, really reflects an opportunity that the state has given to districts to put just a brief statement on the report card. So that will reflect a statement, something that incorporates our mission statement and how we're looking to achieve that.
We're going to move on to number 3. Number 3 is that score summary. There's a couple parts there. One is that in this example, it's an overall score of 68.4. So every district in the state of Wisconsin will receive a score from 0 to 100. So we'll get that overall score. There's also a 5-star rating system. On this example, this district has a 3-star rating, and that is a meets expectations. And the rating for, again, it's 5-star, but the expectations moves from significantly exceeds expectations to fails to meet expectations. So that's the 2 extremes. So again, our district will get those 3 parts: an overall score, a star, and then one of those expectations. And Pam's going to talk about how those that overall score is calculated.
There are 4 different priority areas that factor into that score. And so that little pie chart by the number 4 represents those 4 areas, but it's a proportional representation. So what I mean by that is when we look at the pie chart for individual schools in our district, it will be different. And the reason for that is if a school has a higher percentage of economically disadvantaged students, they have a higher weighting on growth versus achievement. So the higher your economically disadvantaged population,
the higher percentage that is weighted towards growth versus achievement, and that's just the way the state configured that. We look at 4 different areas here, and I'm going to just walk through a little bit of the kind of the overview of each of those 4 areas and what I know about the calculations. This time around, when we look at actual numbers, it might be a little bit more clear. So the first area is achievement, and that looks at students' performance in English language arts and mathematics. And so that is a point-based system. It has been for many years. And what happens is when students' proficiency towards standards is assessed by the different assessments in English language arts and math, they're assigned a point value. And so a student who performs at the proficient level is assigned 1 point. A student who's advanced is assigned a 1.5. A student who's basic is assigned 0.5, and then a student who's below basic is assigned a value of 0. And so all of those points are used to determine the score for English language arts and for mathematics, and then those scores are combined to get that priority area score. So that's something that's been pretty common throughout the last years that they've been doing the report card. When we look at growth, then growth, the other thing I should mention with both achievement and growth is the state uses 3 years worth of data to calculate that score, and they put the highest weight on the current year's date. So in our case, it would have been, the 2021, and then for our elementary, it would go back all the way to 18-19 and 17-18 data. So 3 years worth of data is used to determine. For growth looks at how well students are achieving their expected amount of growth based on where they're starting from. So they take a look at the previous year's data and then determine where do we anticipate based upon where the student is starting from in terms of proficiency level and some other factors. They call it a value added factors, and that is if the student is a student with disability, if a student is economically disadvantaged, if a student is an English language learner. If they're in those categories, there's a different value added. I don't know exactly what those calculations are. They don't share that with us, but they share that the fact that is how they kind of cohort the students and make a prediction about where they should end up in the coming year's growth in terms of performance. And so that score really is a reflection of how well students are achieving those set markers. So where we would anticipate they get to from where they actually started. And that again is divided up into their English language arts performance and then math performance, and then those 2 scores are combined to get the growth score. The newest calculation, and I should reference that the achievement score and the growth score look at all students in the population. So for our district, it will look at all students in our district. For school, it will look at all of the students that were tested within that school. The target group outcomes area is the newest area. That's something brand new this year. And what that is the state calls it a mini report card within the report card. So they're looking at the similar priority areas, but what they have done is they've taken a look at the prior year's assessment and really kind of grabbed the bottom quartile, the bottom 25% of students, and taken a look at those in these areas of achievement, growth, and then there's an attendance area and for high school graduation area. And so they look at that data, grab that bottom quartile, and this scoring here represents how that group of students in that bottom quartile perform on these markers. So they will take a look at their achievement and see how many of those, again, by that point-based system, how many of those students are achieving some success, how many are advancing in terms of their academic growth in English language arts and math. Attendance and really comes down to chronic absenteeism. So looking at how well those students are attending school, and chronic absenteeism is a reflection of students who attend less than 90% of school days. So the higher the score here, the better for us, because that means that more of that target group of students was attending 90% or more of the time. And then attendance is just general attendance rate for that population of students. So this target group outcomes, when we look at that data, that is that bottom 25% of students. So it's just a smaller population. The last piece is the on track for graduation, and that again is all students. So there's 3 categories that are all, and then there is this target group outcomes is your bottom 25%. When we look at on track for graduation, that really is just how well our students are achieving milestones. And again, they look at attendance, and then they look at English language arts performance by 3rd grade and math performance in 8th grade. For high school, the attendance is actually switched out with graduation. So on our high school and on our district report card, because we have graduates, we will see a graduation rate there instead of an attendance rate. Chronic absenteeism means the same thing there. Students attending 90%, less than 90% of the time. School-wide attendance is just the attendance rate, the overall attendance rate. And then those English language arts and math, 8th grade math performances are again those. So those all of those factors, depending on what schools have, will calculate into their on track to graduation. The other thing I should mention is, for example, Lincoln High School does not have 3rd grade or 8th grade. So that score for them is just based upon chronic absenteeism and graduation rate. So just they take out the scores that don't apply.
I had a specific question because as I looked to the on track graduation, and I'm comparing the previous years. We had ones we were in significantly exceeding expectations in the on track and post-secondary readiness. However, when I look to the other 3 priority areas of student achievement, district growth, closing gaps, all of those were meeting few expectations. So I see a lot of them being meets few expectations, and then the other is in the significantly exceeds. Can you help me understand how we can have a significantly exceeds when all of them are showing meeting few?
This is not our actual report card.
I know, and I'm referring to the, I guess for the data on that is the previous years of 2018, 2019, some of the other previous years that I'm just trying to understand what that line item, because it is in this one, this new one too, how that translates. How does that work?
I apologize. I'm not quite sure where you're.
So if I go to the DPI report card here from 2018 to 2019, I look, we had a student achievement score of 59. All right. District growth was 56.5 and closing gaps was 62. All 3 of those on the overall accountability ratings were marked as meets few expectations in the key to the left of that. Then if I go to the on track and post readiness, I see that it's an 81.8, which falls into the significantly exceeds expectations category for the key. And I'm wondering how we have on track post readiness, how does that relate? Because I look at that and it's like, well, we're passing the buck on to the next, the next stage. I'm trying to understand if I'm understanding that correctly or if I'm seeing that as wrong.
Yeah, the meets expectations takes a look at the overall score. These individual priority weights are set to take these 4 scores and produce that overall score. So I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Well, how do we have meeting expectations when every single one of them is meeting few?
In terms of the 18, 19, I don't have that in front of me, so I can't really speak to that. I'd be happy to take a look at that
Sure.
and see if I can determine. Again, that is a different scoring system than this current. So we have to keep that in mind is this is a brand new way that the state is calculating. So
Okay.
that will be a little bit apples to oranges.
Great.
So I can try to take a look at it and see if I can figure out, what you're looking at, and we can talk more about that when I have it in front of me. But this is a brand new scoring piece, especially that priority weighting piece of it, because this is something that hasn't existed.
And then, so if these are gonna be, yeah, it's a great question. So if these are gonna be, so I'm guessing these are gonna be the way that these report cards are going
This will be
forward.
what they'll look like.
Right,
This
are the old ones going to translate? So we won't be able to track any trending data because it'll be an apples to oranges. It'll simply be. it
To
is
some
what it is.
extent, yes, to some
Okay.
extent, because we can take a look at the historical of the old version. But when we say old version to new version, we have to keep in mind that this target group outcomes didn't exist. So this whole weighting system did not exist in anything prior to this report card. So it will be apples to oranges. It doesn't mean that we can't look at our data and look at trends. It's just we wouldn't say that we're comparing two of the same things.
So
there would be components of this new model here that are the same. So achievement, I believe, is the same from years past. We could definitely look at absenteeism or attendance. We can look at graduation, those individual components. But the way the score, the score summary is calculated is significantly changed. And that's why December 14th, not November, will bring longitudinal data to this group to take a look at.
So that we'd be able to make those comparisons moving forward, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sorry.
Bullet 6 just talks about, there's a lot of words there, but number 6 really talks about the fact that the achievement and growth, not only will we see our district score, but we'll see a comparison to the state. That's what number 6 says. That is not a part of the calculation of our score. It's just meant to show where we are as compared to the state as a whole. It is not numerated, but the bottom left corner talks about course data. There's another newer component to this new state report card, and that looks at post-secondary and arts course data. So program data around the arts and post-secondary. That will be part of our district report card that we will look at November 23rd.
One thing I should mention, and Colin, I apologize, it didn't click in my head when we were talking about it, is the report card. This is the cover page. The document that we will share with you on the 23rd will have more details. So it's going to have pages that will explain each of these categories. And there, in many cases, are going to be historical data in there. So the state will pull that for us as well. So hopefully that will help too if you've got specific questions about some of where is this coming from and how does it play forward. It's just the scoring system is going to be different, so it won't exactly align. That we can't interpret the score that we got in 1819 was calculated the same way as the score that we're getting this year. But some of that historical data will be in there. Apologize, I didn't click with me.
Thank you.
There'll be multiple pages to our district report card. This is the cover page that we're going through. And again, just wanted to take time to start building that understanding of how things are calculated, knowing that, again, November 23rd, we'll look at the full detailed report for our district. And then December 14th, longitudinal and school goals.
All right, any questions? Other questions? Move on to the superintendent and director's report. Should have that on board books. Any questions on that? Anybody have any questions for the directors? Colin?
I did have a question as far as to Joanne Metzen. Last meeting that we had discussed was the DPI disproportionality. I did not see an update on here. I might have missed it, but I was wondering if we could get as far as where that was with the state. If you remember correctly, the DPI racial plan that we had.
When you say, can we get a report about where we are with this?
Yeah,
What-
yeah.
Can you tell me more about what you mean by that?
Well, I mean, because in the last meeting, it stated that we would be having that brought back to us for approval. I was wondering if we have an idea of when we will see that for approval on the board.
Yeah, I've been talking with Mark about that topic, and I believe he's been conferring with Dave. And Mark, would you like to give an update about that?
Yeah, sure. Again, we will, I think the question is, do we want to do it at a committee level? Is there something specific you want to see, or something that we want to talk about as a whole board? So Dave and I have been talking a little bit about the board's role there, and I'm sure we'll, continue to discuss that. It doesn't really fall perfectly in any committee necessarily, so I'll add it to our agenda and we'll talk about it. Unless there's something specific you're looking for.
So did it come back from the state yet for as to where we're at? Did it go to? Because it went to the state.
Yes, it has come back.
We submitted our most current plan to DPI, which is this, the state. And they look at that first level of the plan. And then once that's approved, there's a second part that we have to wait to do until they approve that first part of the plan. And the first part of the plan was approved. We're waiting on the second part, the last update I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Factors and strategies. I was trying to think about what the second part is. There's a second part where we have to combine some factors and strategies, and we are waiting for them to open up the right portion of the portal for us to be able to do that work.
Okay, we'll move on to the district activity update.
Just a couple of things I think you saw, obviously, the Superintendent Director's Report, next week's American Education Week. Definitely want to say thank you to all of our staff who are doing an amazing job working with our kids in our district. We also had recognized 52 students at Lincoln High School recently for National Honor Society. And as we recognize outstanding leadership and achievement, National Honor Society is a part of that. We'd like to just recognize those students. I don't know that we've talked a ton about it. I know we put messages out there, but we do have an on-site COVID clinic that's been working efficiently and effectively at the old McKinley building, available for our students, staff, and any family members living in with students and staff. So again, doing a great job with that. And our parent engagement survey has gone out on October 26th, and that they have until the 21st to return that. So that's the first of a few surveys going out. Parent-teacher conferences for elementary on this Thursday. And believe it or not, girls swimming state, I believe, is the last participant we have this week. And fall sports started yesterday, or winter sports, gymnastics and girls basketball, and the rest start the following week. So we keep on keeping on. The musical, tryouts, musical, help me out, what's the term I want to use, not tryouts, musical. Auditions, thank you, will be coming up soon. They're going to announce that tomorrow, what the musical will be. And we have lots of spaces for people to participate, whether they're sing or work behind the stage. So lots of exciting stuff coming. That's my report.
Anything else for the superintendent? All right. Move on, no unfinished business. New business, we have the item.
Questions.
Oh,
for the unfinished business, was there we went into closed session, was there a vote that we were going to have out of that unfinished business? Or that would maybe, or do we have, when does that get taken up?
Yeah, this just isn't on tonight.
Okay.
Probably at the next meeting.
Next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I anticipated a long meeting tonight, so one of the things I just took off, it wasn't.
Super pressing, yeah.
It'll be on that. So.
All right, thanks.
But then we'll go to new business, and I think there's a item from the curriculum committee, the IB program.
Yep, we have a motion and a second on the floor to dissolve the International Baccalaureate program. As I stated earlier, there are other opportunities for students to be enriched in other areas, and very few students that are left in the IB program. They will be finishing out that program, those students, but we're going to move to the other opportunities for that. So we just would like to vote, have the full board vote on that.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's see, then we had a meeting of our ad hoc protocols advisory committee. Let's see, I'll have the minutes here. We'll bring them up. We met on November 1st. There are 3 citizen members. Actually, there's 4. There's one more that's going to be at our next meeting. Discussion was on facial coverings and isolation and quarantine. And I believe that there was a new memo that went out regarding isolation periods, quarantine, correct? We had those discussions at our meeting, and I then met with Superintendent Holtzman, and then he's on Thursday, I believe, he sent that out. So there are some modifications that took place. We're going to meet again after Thanksgiving. Anybody have any questions on the discussion that took place? Otherwise, yeah, Colin.
So I was at the discussion. That was a good discussion. Some of the discussion was the use of streaming for individuals who are in quarantine. It sounded like everybody was kind of in agreement that that would be a good, it was even stated that in other districts they're doing it and they are doing it successfully. We've even heard of other teachers that are doing it and doing it successfully. So it kind of almost sounded like there was agreement that maybe we would like to see that proceeded with. But it wasn't in the, was that looked into further, Dave?
Well, I mean, you'd have to ask the superintendent. Okay. Right. I mean, I did meet with him.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was asking.
Yeah. I mean, he would make that decision on this. But, the virtual, let's say the virtual learning that's provided to students that are in isolation or quarantine. We've talked about that. If there are improvements that can be made to that, because there are some parents who have reached out and said that the learning that's provided to their students isn't working for them.
Yeah, so there definitely isn't an easy answer. I guess it depends on the grade level, the topic, and what we have done right now. I would have to look at the numbers, but we have eliminated the requirement to be out unless you are a positive case or under quarantine because of the household member positive. So that strategically reduces the total number of students who are going to be absent for an extended period of time. I don't know each individual situation. If I have COVID, am I able, am I sick or am I not sick? But we can continue to look into that. I think I've had this conversation with the board as we've talked with our staff members very specifically about what that looks like. And it is not an interest right now for us to have dual teaching, meaning teach face-to-face and teach online. So, we've talked about that. I had a group, I talked with them, gave them feedback. They gave me feedback. Again, I think that the idea of just having a video camera available is not teaching. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. In some cases it works, but because we're doing an introductory lab and I'm talking, if I'm a third grade teacher trying to provide, an instructional math lesson without additional supports, that's not feasible. So I will again reach out to our teacher leaders and ask them what their thoughts are about the smaller number of people, what that looks like, and see what we can come up with in a short term period of time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
With the modification to the isolation period, that should reduce the number of students, right, that are necessary to have that type of?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But we'll look at what that looks like.
I'm sure, Colin, at our next meeting that we'll
It'll probably.
I doubt that our position will change, even with the new member, so. Okay, all right, otherwise, our next meeting would be Tuesday, November 23rd at noon. Do we have any committee meetings prior to that?
Yeah.
Gary, you got a full load in your personnel committee already for tonight, so. Curriculum?
18th November.
Okay, Chris, got anything?
Not yet.
Okay, and Angela?
Not until December.
Okay.
What day is the next meeting?
Tuesday, November 23rd.
Okay.
Just so you know, if it's possible, I would be interested in not planning a meeting at the end of December. If that's, we oftentimes don't have one. So if we have any, I'm letting you know right away, Mark, if we have any business, let's do it on the 14th of December rather than the 28th. That's sometimes been a challenging meeting to have everybody there, to have administrators there. And we've had a lot of meetings, so I'm just heads up there. Anything else anybody want to bring up before we adjourn? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
Make that motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. And Lori, make sure I sign your documents. There you go. Not that I mind